So do you have a planter that needs a liner and it's impossible to find one that fits? Well, don't worry about it anymore because we're going to solve that one today. We have 3 of these vintage planters that hang on the balcony railing when we bought our house. This is what I'm making my linings for today. For your step 1, you'll need to take measurements, which you'll need to take a measurement of the length, which is from side to side. You'll need a measurement for the height, which is from the base to the top. And then you'll need a depth measurement, which is from the front to the back. You'll take all those measurements, put them into the calculations that are listed in the description below, and you'll come up with the dimensions that you need to cut your burlap. And then on to step 2. Start by gathering the measurements of your planter or window box. What you'll need are detailed in the description below. Cut your burlap, and with scissors or rotary cutter, cut 1 piece of burlap per planter. Step 2, fold the burlap down the middle of the side-to-side width. Serge, zigzag, or just straight stitch a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now turn right side out, and making the seam be one of the edges, press it firmly. Now that I have the liner stitched and pressed, this is one. You're going to fold it in half. The open edges you want to place on top of each other. And now this fold line is the center of your window box. So now that we know where the center of our window box falls, I want to mark where the end of my window box falls. Excuse me, my window box is 31 inches long, so the ends are going to be 15.5 inches from that center. So I'm going to put 2 pins at the 15.5 inch spot. And then I'm going to turn my burlap around and do the same thing on this side of the window box. Now that we have our corners marked one way, we're going to do the same thing, but going the other direction. So we're going to fold the liner so that the folded edge and the sewn edge meet. And we're going to mark the center here. And then again, we're going to mark the halfway point. This is the halfway of that, and my planter is 7 inches across from front to back. So I am going to mark at the 3.5 inch mark on both sides. There's that one, and this one. And then repeat on the other end. What you have now are the 4 corners of your liner, with each one having 2 marks. What you're going to do then is take anything that's square. It doesn't have to be a square measurer like this. It could be a book. It could be an album cover. It could be anything that you know is square. Place it so it meets both of these pins and then mark that corner spot. I'm just using regular chalk here. You can also just use a pin, put a pin in there. You can make a faint pencil mark, anything like that. And you're going to do it on the other side too. What you want is to make sure that this is a 90-degree angle. That's the most critical piece. This step is optional. My planters are not really tall enough for the roots. They are only 4.5 inches tall. So I am making the liner 6 inches tall for moist soil, but I need to give the burlap some support for it to stand tall. I'm using some simple craft mesh that I have on hand from an old project. It is weatherproof and easy to work with. Since the walls of my liner are to be 6 inches tall, I need to cut the mesh to 6 inches. If you are doing the same, you'll need enough mesh to fill the long sides just shy of the pins marking the corners of your planter, shy by maybe 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. Reach inside the open ends and place the mesh up tight against the seam or fold. Pin them in place and then stitch 2 lines through the burlap and plastic mesh. I did one line about 1/2 inch from the top and then a second about 5 inches down. Now, once my plastic mesh has been sewn into here, into the two sides, I'm able to close this up, these two open seams. And I just used a serger with thread that matches pretty well, and I'm not worrying about turning it all under. This is going to be the florals and the greens are going to grow right over it. It won't really be seen. I had to just move these out of the way while I serged and then put them right back in. So I still have my markings. And here are my two corners with the pink chalk, and I put a pin there so that I can see it very easily also. All 4 of your corners should have these 3 markings. The 2 edges and here. These should be 6 inches from this outer corner because that is, excuse me, the height that I want my liner to be. And then what we're going to do is fold it so that these 2 line up right on top of each other, just like that. So this is right on the fold. These 2 are right on top of each other, and it comes to a point. And then this right here becomes our stitching line. So I'm going to put a couple of pins there. And I'm going to take it over to my machine and sew that. So now that you have your corners stitched, it looks kind of like this with these 2 little wings sticking out there. But you can see where the base of your planter is. It runs right between those 2 corners that you had marked. Now these fold back over and right along here, right along your stitch line. And then this one will fold over the top of it. Now mine do not quite cross. They are a little bit short of these side seams, and that is because my planter is a little bit wider here than it is tall, so that's not going to meet. Now, if your ratio or your proportions are different, it is possible that yours might actually cross all the way over the side seam. It just depends on the proportions of your planter, and that's fine. Don't worry about that at all. I'm going to then pin this, and I'm going to stitch it right across here to hold all of that together. Now you can stitch this by hand if you want, just to hold it together. You can just stitch it here, and this will be held by your planter. So I have these pinned in place. This is as far over as it's going to reach. So I'm going to go in here and set my first stitch. That's it. Your liner is ready for your planter. And you get to decide if you want the envelope end showing or the cleaner square end showing. Which look will you go for? Now I have also learned that for my planters, I need to add a layer of plastic in the bottom and up the side just a bit. My planters hang high and are in the hot summer sun. They dry out quickly. This helps to retain the moisture they need, but with the air circulation through the sides of burlap, they do not suffer root rot as they would if it were a plastic liner with no drainage. So this has worked for me over the years. Thanks bunches for watching. I hope this helps you out. Please subscribe and maybe even share this video with others.